you. Um, I'd like to try, if it's okay, and share my screen because I like to make learning
Yes.
visible.
Yes.
And for me, I feel that it's seeing, hearing, and touching learning that can, in fact,
Yes,
help
of
us
course.
bridge the gap. I want to share with you, if I can, my thinking to help really deal with this dilemma. And it's a dilemma that I have dealt with personally. My parents were Asia Minor Greeks who were literally sent away from their country, being born in Turkey. They know languages because they had to survive. Uh, and so when Dr. Barrero said, what languages, my grandfather spoke Turkish, spoke Greek. In order to do business and music, he spoke French. And my parents insisted that we had to try to learn what's around us and understand that everyone has a new way of thinking. What I want to share with you today, and I can, this journey I've also faced in Greece. I left the United States with a fancy master's degree in special education, hired undercover as a reading specialist in Greece. There was nothing to acknowledge that I had a degree in psychology. It wasn't part of the university system. When the word psychology means psyche, it's a Greek word, soul, and logo, words. Well, how amazing to think that the same concepts about mental health, which is that you are either severely mentally ill or you cope with doing your academics, listening to the teacher, and go forward. I have, as a practitioner for 15 years in Greece, and as a school psychologist and special educator in the United States, tried to understand how to better diagnose and understand the complexity of dual language learners and all kids. I've looked at the policies and I'm looking at planning, and I'm going to summarize for you some of what I've learned. First of all, everybody has the question of, are we intelligent and are we healthy? And I believe everybody has a coat of arms as a language learner. Languages you have in your life. Right now, we're hearing different dialects of Arabic. I could speak to you in Greek, it wouldn't go very far, but my English accent is very much different when I speak English and when I'm speaking in different places. But the language I use is the language of business for me. Currently, I'll use English. If you were to assess me as a child, my parents spoke limited English. And if you ask them, oh, Evangeline, how is she? And they would say, oh, sure. Oh, sure. Only saying the limited things, which is what happened in trying to get into the school. Parents were in one camp and schools were another. But I believe we have to bring the camps together. The fact that everyone has a language and not everyone learns that language in the same way. And that's how we can tell or not tell how intelligent they are and whether they are healthy. It is never one way fits all. I'm going to suggest a fascinating concept that's gone on. If you look at this picture, you'll see this magnifying glass of intelligence testing. In France, the Stanford Binet. In English, the Terman tests. These were designed to put people into classes of A, B, or C, the smart, the not so smart. And often what happened with the single test was we sorted by socioeconomics, by gender, and in many cases by, and I hate to say this, race, color. The tools that were designed to discriminate against the multiple ethnicities of a little learner. And yet that is often the original structure of French education, and very much what was adapted throughout Europe as you are smart or not smart. And that's what we want to know. I'm going to suggest that there's a very different term, and that assessment means to sit beside the learner. Asseyez-vous. You sit beside, you share eye contact. This is how diagnosis begins. It happens when a parent looks at their child and takes some time to ask questions, not judge. It happens when kids are in religious environments, when kids are in school, when kids are in the community. Assessing means sitting beside a learner over time to observe, to document, carrying evidence of what you see, and then to ask good questions about what does this mean. On the other side, we have evaluations. How do you fit the norm? How many 100 tests can you do? It's a big difference. You want to sort people, you evaluate. You want to understand individuals, you assess. And that's labor intensive, but it's essential. I have, with a team of people who have done research, realized that the accountability in the educational system is not just standardized tests, but looking at their performances and technologies, collecting samples of their work each year to see whether they're progressing or not. If we were doing this, we'd avoid dropouts. We'd see the problems earlier, comparing them with rubrics, which are scales of what kids that age should be able to do, seeking feedback from multiple teachers, not one teacher, and teaching young people to look at their own work, assess what they can do and what they need to do next. I've done a significant amount of work in this. My earliest work was assessing bilingual children because I was shocked when I moved back to the United States to see how many bilingual children were considered in classes for the mentally handicapped, that their social and emotional needs were not understood. My own children moved back from Greece and were diagnosed as inappropriate because boys put their arm around their friend. And I had to go into the school and tell them, my child moved back from Greece. Men put their arm around each other. They're just friends. These discrepant views of judgment make for considering and sometimes hurting the mental health of many children. I have, and so my first work talks about a sociocultural assessment, that is in assessing bilingual children. I moved on to say, well, we can't just look at the 3-year-old to 9-year-old. How do we work across from kindergarten through grade 8? And I worked with a team of the state of Massachusetts in their development of multiple ways of collecting student work to try to understand kids from other cultures. And you'll see the cover here. We have and this is taking place in the Cambridge schools, but a Russian speaker, a Haitian speaker, a Mandarin Chinese speaker, all of which have a portfolio of what they can do in their own language, as well as a portfolio of their English. That's the whole child. That's the whole possibility. And finally, most recently, with the support of a federal language assistance grant from the United States, myself and a team at Teachers College worked with how do we deal with the high school age, grades 6 to 12, and working in creating smaller high school programs in the most high-need public schools. And that is chronicled about what we need in grade 6, what we need in grade 7 to support both academic and social emotional development. There's a lot more I could say, and I can tell you that part of this is not just living in research, which I have, but also staying close to the ground. And I still am working hard to assess young people. I have been in many of the, I spend time in public schools. Right now, I'm in Revere Public High School, looking at many, many kids. In fact, 3 kids that I've done from Morocco, from Algiers, and the challenges they face in crossing bridges, which aren't necessarily open to them as clearly as we would hope. Things to think about. One is an opportunity for families to have, whether it's television or media, a chance to better understand young children and what we expect and what does means we need to go get some help. And I think that we need to think about this at the preschool level before kids enter school. We have to think about it again at grade 3. This is the beginning of if they aren't learning to read and they aren't, the social emotional issues become, but I think screenings, which really started 25 years ago in the United States to try to do, is something to start. And the last is talking about, instead of mental health as a term, thinking of what word can say about abilities that include social and emotional strengths. Because the mental health term sadly talks about, or people think, crazy. Coming from that culture, if you have a psychiatros, you're crazy. So a psychologist could be labeled, could become a fear factor. And how do we begin to think about a language that could be communicated from the ministry level about abilities, possibilities, and social and emotional strengths?